Oh, I think I might kill the Zoom now.
Okay.
See if Restream does it for me. And if it doesn't, I'll send you another Zoom invite.
Okay.
All right, let's put this front and center. All right, this is cool. It works like Zoom, but I can stream wherever I want. This is great.
There you go. I like it.
Yeah. Okay, so honestly, I was thinking that to get started, ironically, we should probably do some bookending.
There you
go. Just kind of create a set of questions for ourselves that we ask at the very beginning of each of these streams, and then a set of questions we ask at the end, just to make sure that, well, we're making the highest amount of progress in the 1 hour as possible.
Okay.
And that we're also, I mean, just, hopefully, I have a lot of fun with it as well. I love progress. So, and we're kind of just getting started. We could use Google Docs. I hear Notion is all the rave. I've never used Notion.
I use it. I like Google Docs personally.
You like Google Docs?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Google Docs?
Google Docs it is.
Google Docs. All right. You want to make a beautiful Google Doc and shoot it my way?
Yeah. Gotta remember how to use this Google Docs.
How was your weekend, though?
My weekend was good. Our kids were sick, and now I'm sick, so just enjoying that as best I can.
Okay. I can turn on a chat overlay. Man, I'm learning so much. Your kids were sick? I guess that's a commonality. I have yet to experience.
What email do you want for the Google Doc?
Yeah, sterlinglong0@gmail.com.
I think I have it in here.
Whoa, dude! I can choose musics. Do we want some chill hop in here?
I got in trouble for that, so I stopped streaming.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's all right though. Worst case is
I just turned some on. I don't know. Can you hear the chill hop?
I can. Sounds good to me.
All right, I'm liking this software more and more. Let's go.
I like that. This sounds very calming. If I fall asleep, just realize I'm going to hit the ground pretty hard.
Okay. Should we change? Maybe we shouldn't have something so calming.
It's all right.
What are the average amount of hours you slept last week then? Per night?
6.5.
6.5? I mean, that's livable, right?
That is. I feel fine with it. When I get too much or too little, is like 5 hours is too little, and anything over like 8.5, and I just don't feel good the next day.
Really?
So, yeah. Can anybody in my Twitch? Can one of you tell me? Can you hear Sterling talking? You should be able to. I might be a noob, but I think I made that pass through. I'll see you in a minute. So how do we want to get started?
All right. So, I mean, question number one is, it's kind of generic, just like, what is our intention for the next hour? Right. Okay. Like, what do we want to accomplish? I honestly think that this is the only question we need to ask.
Yeah, I think
And
so.
like, the book end here would be, how do we do?
Yep, I'm good with that.
Of 1 to 10. Maybe how can we use technology to move faster? I'm not sure, but like AI, for example, if we can use AI to move ourselves along quicker, for example, if like we missed an opportunity to do that, just bringing it up. Okay, so these are the questions that I would ask. So I guess like what is our intention in the next hour? And for me, I would say intention the next hour is I'd love to get to like put together a way for us to share or to deconstruct problems into tasks
Okay.
and share those with each other. That's thing number one. Thing number two would be to dive into the data structures that will govern the Bookends app.
So weird. Can both type at the same time.
Google Docs are nice, huh? I guess I could share my screen, so.
Data structure that will govern. That was my big one. I wasn't sure if that would go under intentions or accomplished, but I think that for me is probably the biggest to get solidified. I'd like to. I think that's good for intentions. I'd like to say at least, for accomplish, I'd like to at least have like a. If we can come to an agreement on that, I'd like to at least have like the skeleton of, are we going to publish this on GitHub, pull from there? I think like those types of things may be part of that. And then can we actually like spin up a repo and get it, get the framework set up? That would be a nice to accomplish, to have like we agreed on this, here's where we're going to store it, let's get like the starting point of it done. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, so like where will we put the code?
Yeah, essentially. And I like the folder structure. Personally, every time I do these, is to have one master folder and then have back end, front end, and then anything that's ancillary we can throw in a separate bucket. Maybe not the best way. It's just the way I've always done it.
Okay. Let's see. I'd say for simplicity, we just do that.
Okay.
Because that way everything is just in one little bucket. And if the project gets to the point where it needs to have, multiple repos directed towards each thing, like we can split it out. But for now, yeah, let's do it. Okay. All right, so I'm fine putting it in GitHub. Okay. Open source. Oh wow, that music changed drastically. Wow.
It's more upbeat. I'm feeling it now.
Yeah. It's less chill hop. It's more actual hop.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. Do
While
we
you're
want to
doing
make a
that.
new like an actual organization for our app? This GitHub repo.
As far as like, what do you mean?
We can. Well, in GitHub, you can create an org, and then you can put repos underneath that organization. As
Oh,
far
I
as-
see.
I'm just gonna say yes. I'm just gonna call it
Yeah,
Bookends.
that's fine. Yep,
Okay.
that's fine. I just assumed you were gonna spin it up in yours and then share it, but that works too.
Nice to have things in their own little container, honestly.
Yeah.
I already have too many repos in my own personal place.
I think nobody ever gets to see, like, they do exist, right? Like this one, I think a lot of people would probably benefit from having, for example, which is what I base my Python backend off of traditionally. Yeah, some of these are cool. Anyways, but like I love. I wish I could just share all these, but sometimes I get more questions than answer. Probably because I don't document stuff well enough. But maybe by the end of this, I'll get better at that. That may be my big takeaway.
Documentation, yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I think that's probably going to be one of the standards that I would like to enforce. Just let's document crap. Let's document the crap out of crap. And if we need to use AI to document the crap out of all of our crap, like that's totally fine. I don't care, right? Anything to make the process simpler, but just having it is going to be valuable. Okay, so it looks like Bookends. I don't know. I can't share my screen because Arc or my web browser doesn't have permission, and in order to give it permission, I have to close it and reopen it. So I can't share my screen in this session. But looks like Bookends is taken, but Bookends-IO is not. So that's the one we're going with.
Sounds good.
Business or institution. Name of business or institution this belongs to.
Bookends.
Okay. I'll just say it belongs to my personal account for now. I hereby agree to the terms of service. I will verify I'm a human. 2 identical objects. Oh boy. Oh, I think it's that one. Okay. Pick one square that shows 2 identical objects again. Okay. All right. You know, I had to do one of those like prove you're human things, and I failed like 5 times in a row. I could not figure out for the life of me what it wanted. It was horrendous.
They're so bad. AI can tackle it,
Well,
but
again,
we can't be. Yeah.
It's like it's getting so complex that it's just like, oh, if you can actually do this, you're not human.
That's right.
Which I think is hilarious. They just expect to fail too many times in a row, and then it's like, yeah, we know you're human now. I think that'd be a hilarious way to prove someone's humanity.
That you can't trick the bots into telling them you're human anymore. Will be like peak AI. We told you so. Superbrain is on duty. Interesting.
All right, have our org creating a new repository. Bookends. Look. All right, and let me invite you to the org. What's your, is it Amir Dapple?
Dapple Core, I think. D8.
Dapple Core, there it is.
No, I think it's this one, Dapple Core.
Make you an owner?
Yeah.
Boom. All right, you've been invited. So you should have access to the repository. I'm going to assume that since you're an owner, you can push, pull, and do all the good stuff to the repo. So, all right. Okay. Awesome. So that was thing number one. It's like where do we put the code? We have a place to put our code. We're gonna put the front end and back end both in that same repo. And okay. Next up was determine how we deconstruct and share our tasks. So for me personally, I like to use ClickUp. It's the simplest thing I found for sharing tasks and creating different.
And I have it too.
Sprints. All right, perfect. So let me just make a Bookends workspace and invite you to it. Oh, I think one thing I want to come away with this is a logo. So let's use some AI.
I've got the here cheating. I know there's like a million ways to do this, but I've got my little make a little image with my little site. Unless you have one, I like using a Night Cafe. It's pretty cool to customize, but I also like building my own stuff. So it's, you can see.
So what email do you want me to use for ClickUp?
Let me see what's on here. Looks like it's my personal email. Let me send it to you. All right, what is this? Discorded it to you? Yeah.
Yep. Got it. All right. Okay. You should be invited to the ClickUp, which means we have a place to put our code. We determined how to deconstruct and share our tasks using ClickUp. And next step then is, are we in a good enough spot then to deconstruct or just create the data structures that will govern the Bookend app? And I guess above that would probably be to create just like a high level, maybe operational specification of what Bookends is, especially for the people who are watching, because I mean, we talked about it, but we haven't talked about what it is, since we've been here. So maybe we start there. What is Bookends?
I took it as like it's a good maybe alternative to other tools where you can kind of track your starting point and your ending point of a day in a nutshell, and then give real-time feedback. Instead of just answering questions at the end of the day, actually give yourself feedback for how you did, and then we'll be able to measure that feedback over time to show you if you're making progress, if you're not, and then that gives an opportunity to have a conversation, essentially, either with yourself or with one of us or with others, to say, I'm not getting the results I would expect. Why? Yeah. I think that like as a high level, to me, that's kind of what we talked about.
Yeah. Okay. I would agree with everything you said. Probably the most succinct description that I've been able to create for it is I don't know, it's a journaling app or framework that ties the beginning of an activity or time frame to the end.
I think that makes sense.
That's the goal. Where like you got your start, you got your end, you're trying to bookend this journey.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're writing a book, you try to tie this beginning, try to hook people in. Here's what we're doing. You jump them straight into the story. Here's stuff that's going on, and then it like hopefully, right? If the writer is good, they tied this whole novel together, and at the end, most or if not all of the loose ends are tied up, unless there's another book, right? And so bookending for me is I'm trying to turn every day of my life into that. It's like I know I set an intention at the beginning of the day. I have a set of questions that I use to do that. And at the end of the day, I review the answer to those questions. And I actually score myself on how I did in review of those questions. And then I get more granular with that. It's like, okay, in this 1 hour activity with you and me today, right now, you can also bookend. You can get as granular as you want. Again, it's activity or time frame. So a day, a week, 1 hour, programming session with Amir, 1 year. Here are my goals at the beginning of the year. Did I actually do them at the end of the year? All right. So bookending. I love the idea personally. And just some background on this. I had the concept of bookending about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, where I decided I wanted to, I'm religious. I believe in God. I try to read my scriptures every day. And so I would, at the beginning of the day, I would try to read just at least one verse. It's like I didn't want to read more than that. It was just one verse. That was my minimum, right? And at the end of the day, I wanted to read another verse. And for me, this was I wanted to bookend my days with spiritual, something that I knew would help me spiritually. And so that's what I did. It's for weeks, months. I bookended my days with, I would read a verse. And then I tacked onto that journaling as well. And it's that idea, that concept kind of slowly evolved into a much more, I guess, robust system that I have now. I have a set of questions I ask myself. I try to ask myself every morning. And I have a set of questions I ask myself every night. Looking back at those questions I ask myself in the morning, just be like, did I do that? Was I there? Was I present? Did I engage in the way I wanted to? What was my, like, how did I define success this morning? Was I successful today?
Mm-hmm.
So those are all the things that, like, that's bookending. And I decided I wanted to make an app about it, an app that facilitated it so I could more easily create my questionnaires, track my responses, and more specifically the scores that I give myself. For example, at the end of the day, or at the end of a session like this with Amir, just like, how did we do? So as we're building this app, hopefully we can just start immediately using it as we're building it. Just be like, okay, what features do we like? What features do we not like? Favorite part about something like this is that when you find a tool that you just really, really want to use, and then you just go out and you build it, it becomes just build stuff that people want to use, right? And if you really want to use it, I really want this. It just makes it that much simpler.
And I personally, I think I might have told you this before. I kind of fits and starts with building a health app, more on the sense that I built the back end of it, and I just don't want to build the front end until I find somebody who's interested in building it. But the same concept, right? It's a 30 to 60 days, start to finish, track your progress, hold yourself accountable, and then constant, reminders of, it's the basics, right? Have you taken care of these 3 things? And so I think, the idea, there's lots of cool apps out there. I have a very specific one in mind. So for me, and this is good for anybody else who's developing, why it's so important to go through this process, right? This may seem like, okay, we're just typing up some stuff, but if we don't agree on these things when we start, he's going to draw a cow and I'm going to draw a horse, right? And a cow and a horse are not the same thing, right? You can eat them both. You shouldn't, but some people do. However, if you're going to ride one around, you're going to want the horse, right? And so we want to make sure what we're building makes sense for our use case, right? But then I can take the same framework and apply that to another type of app that, while I would redesign some of it, the mechanics of how it would work, how it would flow, how we're tracking, it's all reusable code at that point. And so when you're looking for code out on the internet, this is what a lot of people are doing, right? They're just sitting here talking about it and they build it and share it, right? And so for me, as we kind of go through this, it's good to show, where we're good at stuff, where we're not good at stuff. And honestly, just like I had today and the other day, I like it when people actually take my code and use it. And it's not a personal slight to me. It's more like a proud moment, right? You want people to see value in what you're doing. And so to me, I think this just, when we go through this, I think it's pretty cool. I'd like to just jump into coding. It's what I usually do. But taking a pause, what you don't see is what we're doing right now, is coming up with, we purposely held off on doing it, right? So we could do it on these sessions. And so I think it's kind of a cool, just the whole thing is a cool concept. And while we will bookend ourselves, it's true. We'll follow our own medicine here.
Yeah. Just a couple of notes there, or comments on that. One, I think Grant Cardone said, he's like, marketing is just getting people's attention. And I'll say, I want to just get people's attention. I will blatantly and honestly say, that's one of my goals. I want to share this idea as far and as wide as it can possibly go. So for all the people listening, watching, if bookending, if the concept or principle that Amir and I described sounds interesting or of value to you, try it. Give it a shot. I have questionnaires. I can just send you what I ask myself every morning and every night. And you can edit it, modify it, do whatever you want with it to make it yours, right? Second thing is, yes, totally agree with you, Amir, on the I love it when people use my code. I think one of my favorite things about working on Cadena was I was able to just make so much valuable code, and it was all just open source. And to my knowledge, people are still using some, for example, Cadena code. When that site went down, multiple people reached out to me hey, is it down forever? And I was like, sorry. I just updating my URL to destroyinglong.me, trying to be a bit more professional, because I'm moving into executive coaching as well. And I received the feedback from multiple people again that I should update my URL to not be my gamer tag. Right, so not that there isn't a purpose for the gamer tag, but just that in the world of professional business, executive coaching, if I introduce myself as I'm Lazarka, people they just don't take that the same way as they do in crypto. So, but yeah, I love it when people use my stuff, and I'm glad that Cadena code is still so incredibly useful. A
lot of people use it.
So I'm glad. I'm really glad it's useful. Super happy. And all my open source code still open source. I tried to make it as descriptive as possible so people could just rip it off, reuse it as much as they wanted to. I'm happy about it. Okay. So I think that pretty much sums up what Bookends is. Kind of, I guess, what we're all about. Some of the things that Amir and I really, really value. Just service, giving, seeing people use our stuff makes us feel really good inside. So
it's true.
Let's dive into this. Yeah.
All right.
So I guess the last piece here is the data structures that this Bookends app is going to need. All right, so kind of working from the top down here, I think obviously just accounts. I think we're going to need to have accounts. I think that's pretty obvious. I think every single thing needs to have an account. Let's see, we need accounts. I don't know if we want to call it a questionnaire. Questionnaire sounds so official.
I thought we need a form. We need a form because we're going to be rendering dynamic questionnaires. I don't know. That was one of the things when we were talking about this. Like, it's so important to have this piece of it right? Because accounts is accounts. We can put name, email, whatever we need in there.
Yeah.
But we're going to have a dynamic form that's going to have a set of standard questions, right? And then we're going to have a set of optional, right? It's you can add your own, right? You can add your own bookends in there. And so I was torn with what you even call that and how you would structure that, because if we're talking about structured like SQL versus unstructured like Mongo, I think that's a big thing to get down, because what we don't want to have is a situation where we make a change and now it's very difficult for us to update our default questions because everybody's got something different, right? So I think that there's a little bit of thought to me. Maybe you disagree, maybe you agree, but I think there's just a little bit more thought that has to go into that to make sure whatever you're rendering on the front end makes sense. And if we ever need to pivot on the back end, it's a simple switch for us, right? We can match fields and move. I find myself more and more creating structure in an unstructured database to avoid. But it's cool because we have flexibility to do whatever we want. So like, I don't know. I think that probably the biggest piece in my mind is this piece of it is like, do we go with structured data? Do we go with unstructured data where we can kind of have like whatever we want and we're going to present it to the user? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So let's see. So from my perspective, what you just said is like, we need to determine how structured our data is going to be so that it can be interpreted by the front end and actually display to the user in a way that makes sense and doesn't, error out, fail, just break completely. Right?
Basically.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So from my perspective, I would say that we just need to think of, just starting at the top form here, and then just kind of working our way down. Let's see. You brought up a couple of things. One is there's going to be, let's call them, instead of questionnaires, because I don't really like the term questionnaire, and I think questionnaire might actually be a sub portion of like a bookend. Let's actually just call it a bookend.
There you go.
And so a bookend has multiple questionnaires. And the way that I guess I do like to think about things in like an SQL, like a one-to-many or many-to-many relationship. If it's a one-to-one, you should just put that thing inside of its container. There shouldn't really be a relationship there; it just is part of it. So a bookend will have at least two questionnaires, the start and the end. Maybe there's another questionnaire that you could put in the middle of it. Let's say you're going for a year and you'd like to check in every single month. Maybe you have 12 questionnaires for your yearly bookends. Just a thought. I don't know if you'd want to do that, but just a thought. So a bookend will have multiple questionnaires. Each questionnaire will have multiple questions. Each question then will just be of different types, right? And I think Typeform, Jotform do this pretty well, where they just say, your question is long form, short form, multiple choice, yes, no. So they just have hard types, static types on each of those questions that let them know precisely how they need to display it to the user. And I think that's the direction we should go as well. Yeah. So the next thing that you brought up was having our own bookends that kind of pop up in the app so that they don't need to make their own to get started. So for me, I would say that those are unmodifiable. Users can potentially hide those from their view if they don't want to see them. But they can always access.
Can't modify defaults, but can hide.
Yeah. And so there's just like a central database that they pull those from that they can work with just to get them started in Bookends. And then they can start to design their own, maybe copy one of the defaults, make their edits, and save it.
Mm-hmm. I had the thought, so it's still in my head a little bit of how we generate that. Do we want to put them in like as a template when we create a new user? Do we want to provide that as the, like, let's say we're adding a new record. Do we want to provide it at that time where it's rendered dynamically based on what we have as questions? Or do we want to have like a central repository of those standard questions that every time a new user's generated, it can query that to pull in the latest copy of the questions? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Let's see. One, I think it'd be awesome if people could share their bookends. Two, I think it'd be awesome if we could consistently update our repository of bookends, perhaps update the questions to make them more valuable, more impactful, like as we study the impact of the questions on people over a period of time. So I would say have a repository where we can store the bookends.
Yep.
And then like we can have ours stored there, and over time we can also allow people to store their own there. I think something else that this allows us to do as well is when people do sign up, we can present them with a list of bookends that they can just pull down, like sync into their app, and they can be like, oh yeah, I want to improve my day, like improve my energy and intention and ambition throughout the day. Yeah, I want that one. Or, oh yeah, I really want to relax on Sundays. Like, what does that look like? What's the process? Yeah, let's put on that one. And so we can just have different ones and the desired outcomes. It's like, oh, I want to improve the efficiency of my meetings. Heck yes, there's that one. Yes, please. I want to get out of meetings. Let's do that one. So we could just like that. I think that'd be fun if we offer, or just when they sign up, it just shows them all the default ones that they can choose from. And they just pick and choose the ones they want.
Yep, I think that sounds good.
Okay. All right, so we have a bookend, which has multiple questionnaires. We have a questionnaire, which is just multiple questions. And then the next piece then is that each question is actually a many-to-many with other questions in the same bookend. And I kind of think that's where Bookends really shines, is that you're tying this beginning questionnaire to questions in the second questionnaire, or just subsequent questionnaires. So having that data readily available to me in the app is going to be very important. So I can show the user the answer to that question.
Points of relationship. And how to word that, have multiple points of relationship. Mm-hmm.
A question store a reference to previous questions they rely on.
So you have a relationship between each bookend.
Yeah.
You're right. You're absolutely right, Tori. We all want to get that self-improvement. It's just a lot of work. It's continual work and it never ends.
Makes it great, right?
when you start organizing it, you start to see, oh, I thought I was doing really good, or I thought I was doing really bad, and you're like, yeah, it's not too bad, or it's not too great, but be somewhere in the middle probably, and work on it from there.
I think when people start to score themselves actually on how they're doing, they are generally doing better than they thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
People have, I would argue that most people on the planet have not scored themselves on just their life, personal development, how they're doing in, let's say, personal life and professional life for long enough to know, hey, I'm actually doing okay. I think a great example of this is Brendan Burchard. He told this story about how he was coaching an executive team. And he was like, all right, guys, I want you to score yourselves on these 10 areas of life for the next month. Just score yourself once per week on these 10 areas. And when we come back next month, let's just see how you did, like see how you feel. And he said at the end of that month, everyone got back and was like, you know what, I'm actually doing way better at life than I thought I was, just because I didn't know how I was doing. But now I have, 10 areas. Maybe you can trim those down if you want to have less, combine a couple, but now I have a score. It's like I'm at a solid 85%. And previously I thought I was at like 60. So, but now they have an actual score that they can give themselves. So another good thing about Bookends is like I would love to have the ability to give myself a score on just how the fetch I am doing in any area of life that I'm bookending. So, okay.
Yeah. To start somewhere too.
Okay. Say question types. I think yes, no. Multiple choice. Basically free form. Score. Trading. What else do we have? I guess easiest thing to do is just kind of check out type form, see what kinds of questions they have.
I just asked my robot what it thought, so we'll see which one. And it came up with type form first thing.
Yeah. Is that ChatGPT?
Yeah, I find it does better for this kind of stuff. So yeah, satisfaction rating, open-ended feedback, multiple choice, drop-down selection, yes or no, date selection. What date? I don't think that's going to apply unless you're trying to give yourself a certain goal, but I don't know that that fits in specifically.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Scale rating, ranking.
Yeah. This is an interesting one. We could also, a statement where, you don't have to have any response. It's just a statement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that might be, I could see that being valuable.
Yeah, like, how do you feel about yourself? When you start this, how do you feel about yourself? And then when you're done, or every month, how are you feeling now?
Yeah. And maybe it's the phrase you want to repeat back to yourself. And so for me, for example, I'd say, today I will be fearless, loving, and joyful. It's just a phrase that pops up every morning in my questionnaire. I see it. I'm like, all right, today I will be fearless, loving, and joyful. I get to say that. So just a reminder, right? Okay, I think these 5 kind of cover, I'll say 90% of our bases. And okay. Perfect. All right. So we've got Bookends with our multiple questionnaires, with our multiple questions. We know the questions have a reference to other questions that they rely upon. Okay. I feel like that's a pretty good breakdown of our data structure. And I guess from my perspective, again, I'm still thinking of it in SQL-esque. But we'd
That's okay.
have one table for bookends, one table for questionnaires, one table for questions, likely another table for answers to those, all of the above, or something like that, where I push my crap to. But I don't know. It's
Do
the
you
back
want
end
to?
was on you.
Let me ask you in a different way. So forget everything about SQL. We don't care about
Okay.
SQL right now, unless you want to use SQL. I know SQL too. I just think like if you want a cool dynamic app, if you don't want the headache that goes with having such structured approach, then if we settle on Mongo, man, it's not tables anymore. It's databases and collections. So um, a collection is a little different, right? So I can show you. Actually, ask me later. Let me just show you real quick what I mean. And I show this all the time. Okay, so we have NFTs are notoriously insane, right, to work with, and so you could do anything. I can just start adding stuff here, no problem. It knows. And so if you want dynamic forms, you build this relationship. You build an ID, your user ID. I might actually let me see if I got a better.
Yeah, I actually can't see what you're talking about. Can you share your screen on my screen?
It's because I'm on my, how do I share my screen? I thought I was sharing my screen on yours. Share screen. I've had this open the whole time.
Yeah, my stream has been kind of boring. It's just your face and my face.
Oh, okay. My streams had this cool little video going. So you didn't see any of this. I was showing my my later, like if you wanted to. I was just playing with this earlier. Anyways, now why they probably went like, whoa, what is he talking about? So the cool thing about Mongo is this is just your normal key value, but you can index on every single thing in here if you want really fast, efficient searches. It doesn't care. You can build indexes however you want. It's your data, and this is a file essentially. This is just like like if you go to AWS and you drop it in an S3 bucket. This is all that is a reference file for user ID. This, right? This unique whatever, blah blah blah. And so you build this relationship, and even though this is probably a pretty dang important key value, it doesn't matter because this could be a key value, this could be a key value. I wouldn't do this obviously, but like these things can be, and this would be. So instead of thinking about it where you need all these tables, think about the relationship you can build in a simple. Your whole person can be its own person, and that's why I'm saying like when you think about like those default collections where we pull from, it's really important because you can add an array in here of questions. You can do that. I could just add an array, and while this is easy because it's all GUI based, when I look at like creating the structure for this, I almost never do. I can have collection name with a capital N, and I can have it with a small n, and I can have two of those, and I can just render things however I want. So you kind of have like, it's like a kid's playground. Like it's so different than when you're working with SQL, and that's why I love it. Because while I still do build structure, I do have to have, because things do have to flow, I have checks on there. But when I stream data into here from the blockchain, for example, I'm getting a hodgepodge of stuff, and I'm just throwing it in here as part of the record, and I move on to the next one. Now, I might have, like, you can see how I do this. I do key off of, I'm starting to strip these out, but I do key off of like this is the name of a collection, which matches, where I was just at, right? And so I build the relationship a little bit different. I build it for my queries. So when I'm thinking about, okay, what data do I need? How fast do I need it? Where's it coming from? I usually actually kind of do it in the reverse order. And so I look at what endpoints I need. and I say, okay, he's going to need to be able to look up the records for a person. Well, before you would get your key value, you would go to a foreign table, right, and you would pull data. Now, I don't care about any of that. I can just throw stuff in here. If I want to throw another collection in here and map it, easy, 2 seconds. And in the back end, the server side just takes care of it. So the data, however I put it in here, you're just going to get it however you want it, right? And so I think I don't know how much you've used this. If you use Firebase before, it's kind of like that concept, right? But you really don't. I don't think you need to worry too much, unless we're talking like high velocity transactions. Then it's a different story. Then you have to like really clamp down on how you're doing things. But you're talking even a couple thousand records, 100,000, million records. This thing doesn't bat an eye. And so when you build the relationship to a forum, I just want you to think about like, I wish I had a better, I think I deleted it, but I had a better way of showing this. So like, yeah, so you can have this, all their forums Q&A right in here. So when you render a user, you can have all of their data in one poll. Like it's all there for you. And if you want it in separate, that's fine too. You can, so a lot of my lookups do pull from multiple collections. So like I might have a shorthand where I'm just matching like a token and a user, and then I have a table that pulls their metadata, right? Or a collection that pulls their metadata because it's fast, it's huge. And so I just do a little bit of work on my API, and to you, it's a quick little search. It's very fast. And so I just want to like break you of that table philosophy, because we don't have to worry about those things. We literally can just imagine what we want, and then that's our structure. It's a we can structure it, we can leave it unstructured. There's really doesn't matter. Like I said, if we have default data, we have default fields, we'll probably want to create that as a structure, which would follow like what SQL would do when you create a table. But after that, you can go hog wild. You do whatever you want after that.
Yeah, so I would say from my perspective, I would want to have structure, like a set structure in each of the bookend, questionnaire, and questions, and I'd say answers. So those are the those four data types. I would love to have a defined structure so I can just JSON serialize and deserialize those.
What was the fourth one?
Nice and easy. Answer, like whatever
Question,
the answer
account.
Yeah. Bookend, questions, answers, accounts, questionnaire. So your set of questions. Yeah. So those are the set structure that I'd love to have. And so let's see. So just to make sure I've understood then. So you said database and collection. Does a database has multiple collections?
Correct.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, this is my database, and these are all my collections within it. These would be traditionally what you would consider a table.
Got it. Okay. So we'd have, for example, one collection that could be all of the accounts that exist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then another collection would be, here's all of the bookends that people have made since the dawn of time. Here's the 3 or 15 that are tagged as like the official bookends of us that we'd created. Okay, and then you'd probably have would you have another collection for questionnaires, or would all of the questionnaires just gonna be wrapped up inside of the bookends collection? I would assume it would be wrapped up inside of that.
I would keep it wrapped, yeah.
You can have depth in those collections because it's just a JSON object. Okay, yeah.
It's you know what? This is one. You literally will get this as one big JSON object.
Yeah.
Which I know would be very easy for you to handle at that point.
Okay. The biggest question that I have then is, how do we create relationships between questions? That's if they're embedded inside of a JSON object, how do I create relationships between them? Is it maybe I just reference the index, or maybe each question that we generate has its own ID inside of a questionnaire, and the question points has an array of referenced questions of that same bookend, and it has the reference includes the questionnaire ID and the question ID. That would make sense.
So like,
Okay.
I have collections, and it's actually collections, right? NFT collections, whatever. It's different, little different terminology.
Yeah.
So I have table data, right, from one type of collection, completely different type of collection, right? I have table data from this type of collection, and then I have like the whole Marmalade ledger right here. All three completely different data types, completely different, right? All I'm doing is I'm creating a key, this value right here, that now I reference in my collections of collection ID of birds. This will probably trigger some people who have birds. Collection ID, chain 8 collections. I might be in the wrong. I just want to show you this. It's how you link data pretty easily. Cadena birds. So any bird will now, will now show in my other table. And so I have different reference points like that where I just set the index on this. I don't know why. I must have removed it when I was playing around with stuff, but you just build the relationship kind of like if you were doing a SQL, right? You would do foreign keys, right? Where you have a key that you can import basically from another table. That, let's say the key for 3 tables is this, even if it's called something different. It's the same thing I'm building. I'm building that same exact relationship. I just built it different. So you would have like your Q&A, like an array of questions essentially. I feel like if you'd want to map that to your table of questions and answers, and I would do it based on like this ID. I wouldn't actually call it that. I would do it based on this ID, which should be a random value. Each question would be its own random value, and we have like a default set in here. So like if it's a default question, we have a like default true, right? And so now when we're looking up our default questions, we can delineate between default and not default. Let's say if we wanted to run a report of just our default questions, we could cut all that other data out and not have to worry about it, or we can present it all. We have flexibility, right? You can not query on that, right, and just pull all the data. So I'm just trying to explain, like, there's a lot, obviously, there's a lot of differences, and it takes a little bit of getting used to. I just build little relationships based on, like, this is a relationship, this is a relationship. Heck, there's data in here that I use as well, to build my relationships. So it's pretty flexible. So if we had a table or a collection of just questions, I can match them back to, like if this was each one of these was a question, we could have some data in here that we can then tag back to, just like we would in SQL. We could tag back to our other collections, even if that's, if we use count would be a good key for certain things. I don't know if I'm explaining that well. In my head, it sounds really easy, but I'm also cloudy because I've been sick.
No, so I think it's basically what you're doing is you're able to spread around this ID across kind of all these different tables.
Mm-hmm.
You can search and query on all the different tables using the same ID because, well, you've spread it around. It exists in all the different places.
Yeah, it's an interesting. It took me a while to get used to it, but all I do now is I was trying to find an example. It'd probably make more sense to you if I just showed you what it was doing, but yeah, I just, like when I'm doing queries now, I have my default table, right? Or my default collection, which is a table traditionally with SQL. This is another one, and this is another one, and I'm just merging these before I send it to you. So I'll collect everything you want, and then at the end of it, I'll present to you exactly what you need. So however you want the data presented is how I would create the backend, right? And I don't necessarily know that you need 4 full collections. I think you probably could get away with using a little bit less, but I think we'd have to test that out a little bit, because I haven't done like a Q&A type in here. But I know there's a couple good examples out there for that type of structure as well. So I've never found any definitive do it this way or that way. They're just like, hey, if it works, just use it, because it's going to be the same speed no matter what. It's not, as long as you're indexing properly, as long as you're building your indexes properly, that's the most important thing. So there's no penalty, really, again, until you're starting to get into the millions of requests per minute. You're not going to run into any kind of bottlenecks with this cloud, select a cheap cloud setup here.
Right. Huh. Okay.
I know it'll take some time. You'll see. I don't know that puts us on a path to agree on what that structure will look like, but I think it's important to at least give you a little step back from SQL mindset.
Yeah, I'm just gonna start trying to just scroll down a little bit on this Google Doc then, and I'm actually just gonna try and put together the JSON representation. Next page.
Oh yes.
Just put together the JSON excuse me, representation that I see then as part of the Bookends collection, right? Because I think we just need 2 collections, maybe a third for answers. You can tell me, but so we have our bookends, and this is what it looks like. Got a name, which is a string. It's got questionnaires, which is a list of objects that are order dependent. Like this actually needs to be parsed in this order, which is important. Maybe just have like an actual order in here, so it knows that. But is it capitalizing things? Am I doing that?
It's Google Docs, man.
Oh, dang it. Okay, it's gonna keep doing that. Whatever. So we're gonna just do something like this. We got order. We got name. We have. I don't know what else I would need other than let's just have the questions now, which is another array of is this making sense for something you put into a collection? Like just something you throw in there?
I would just put this all in a... Here, type out the rest of that. I'll show you what I would do.
Yeah,
like,
okay.
Close your quote real quick, or get rid of that one for a second for me. All right, hold on. So I know this is all visual. That's okay. I don't want that one. I want this one. So, Amir, Sterling.
I don't know if it'll work. It isn't valid JSON. If you want to put quotes around string and string and question type, then it'll work.
Oops. Oops. I'm having trouble typing now. This will only take a second. String.
And number as well. Trying. Oh man.
Still not happy. That's my closing bracket. That's
Maybe. Do I not have a comma somewhere?
that's the closing bracket for that. That's the closing bracket for that. Here. JSON. I don't even care. Just tell me what to do.
It's valid.
There we go. I don't know what was. All right, there you go.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
And this could be like, even if you wanted, like if you wanted to just create a simple relationship in one collection with somebody's questions and answers, you could do that too. And then everybody would have this object. And then you wouldn't even have to go, like, because you're going to do a lookup individually anyways, right? You're already doing everything you would. And instead of looking at like 5 different places, you could just pull it all from one place. It may not be good. I don't know. I have to think through it. But either way, having a question and answer like format, you could do it this way, or you could have like another collection that's questions, and then this is my account, and so it's flexible. I just wanted you to see like it's literally just JSON. So however you want to, if you want your questions and then you want to break it down into, here's Amir's, or here's a collection for accounts, here's a collection for his answers, and here's the questions collection. You could do that too. I just link them. It's not a big deal. That's the beauty of Mongo. You could do it either way. Either way will work. If it's easier for you to wrap your head around, to do it like a more traditional, I have no problem. It's not any harder for me. I just like that simple relationship because it's one query, one post, one put, one get. Super, super simple. But it could be a drawback too. I like I said, I don't see it all the way. I have to think through it a little bit, but I think something like this, could be like default questions. I just wanted to give you something visual to think about.
Yeah. Okay. So I have updated then the
question ID will be a UUID, which is fine.
Yeah. So this is then how I think about it. I just have a reference then to the questionnaire and its actual question ID. Maybe this is the questionnaire order or something like that. But
I think the limit is 8 to 10 meg per record before you have any issues. So think about it that way too. It's a pretty big size for just regular data.
Okay. Define record. Is that an individual item in a collection?
That is, I'm sorry, it's a document. So it's called a document.
Okay.
So this is a record / document in my mind. So this can be 8 to 10 meg, somewhere in that ballpark before you have issues.
Okay,
so,
8 to 10 megabytes of JSON string data.
Yep.
Okay.
So you could do a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. Okay.
Before you get penalized. So.
Okay. Well, in that case, I mean, we can have all of the users' bookends in one document. And then maybe for their answers, when we're storing those, we can split that into, on a monthly basis, into a new document each time. just to make sure that we never reach that cap. I mean, I don't think anyone would ever reach the cap in 30 days, but I mean, they might. But just to make sure that they don't, so we can effectively archive the past 30 days.
What I would think about too is these questionnaires, we would store them in their own table so that at time of generation, we reference that table to get the most up-to-date questions, if that makes sense, or collection, whatever. Does that make sense? That's a perfect use case for having one of those. Separate is you can reference it when you're creating a new account. So if you wanted to dynamically update that on the website yourself, you could just reference that and it will flow through the entire application.
Wait, so you're saying create a collection specifically for questionnaires?
Yeah, whatever our default questionnaires are going to be, or question forms, however we're terming that. Bookends, our bookends. We'll have our own collection for bookends so that you can make a quick little panel to modify them.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. I 100% agree. Yeah, having a collection just for all the bookends, default, user created, etc., I think would be awesome. And if we could tag different, I mean, as we said, having the ability to let people share their bookends with other people is basically just equivalent to saying, oh yeah, it's is it public? It should just be a Boolean, it's true, false. And if it's public, people can see it. They can download that. They can use that, work with it, all that good stuff.
And the beauty is you could just add that on a per user condition, so you don't have to have a false. You just have to have the ID in here, and you should have true false at that point, right? But you don't have to as I'm saying is you don't have to put it in here. You can just logically say on your site, if it includes this, great, and if it doesn't, it's always false. Or we could put it in here for every record. It's not going to hurt anything. It's very small value, but it's just flexible. I love it. You'll tell. You'll be able to tell. It's like my baby. Yeah. I love working on Mongo.
I mean, it's just JSON data, so it's just however you want to structure your map. That stores all your stuff. So, okay, yeah. So from my perspective on the Flutter front end, and this is the last thing I'll bring up, and then we can call it good for the day. But I'll have a bookends class. I'll have a questionnaires class. I'll have a questions class, and I'll have actually, I think that's it. Bookends, questionnaires, questions. Maybe this last piece would be question, lies. Maybe I might be able to call this a question link, actually. You can link to other questions. Make that a really easy process. Question link will probably include a bookend ID, but yeah. So we got bookends, questionnaires, question links. Last thing we didn't really discuss is answer, and I guess objectively how we want to store those. I suppose maybe it would just be this entire structure, but
just throw it in there.
Question would just be, we would just have another field in here called answer.
I would let it live in that same relationship.
So dynamic. And then depending on which collection you're pulling from, it's just, well, I guess from my perspective, it's this is kind of just a nullable field in Flutter. And so if it exists, it's oh, cool, I can display that. If it doesn't exist, I don't need to. So, okay. All right. Awesome. I like it. This gives me more than enough information to get started. Honestly, I could probably have ChatGPT create some or turn my questionnaires that I already have into this structure for me. And I can use those as my test data.
Yeah.
Let's go. This is awesome. All right. So, I mean, how do we do today, Amir? How do we do?
I think we're a little long-winded at times, both of us. I
Yeah.
think it's maybe next time will be a little bit better because we'll have a little bit more, probably less like openness. Like here, we're gonna start. I assume we'll probably show actual like IDs would be my guess. Um, that would be
Yes.
my thought. And so I think we could probably keep it a little bit more um, free-flowing at that, or flowing faster. But yeah, I think both of us are probably guilty of, myself for sure, of just kind of, I just like sharing thoughts that come up in my head, so I can't help it. But I think overall, so this is so important because now I know what's in your head, and I can translate that into a workable structure, and you can see how easy it is for me to morph that structure. Like if I don't like something, I just change it, and then we default to the new change. It's pretty fun. So I think for me, I find this to be a good, successful session. We have our data types, which was an absolute must, and then we have something that we can work on.
Yep. Yeah. I'd personally say, like, I don't think we went long. I know, I mean, we're 15, 16 minutes over the time we said we were going to do, but that's the only qualm that I have. I would say that everything that we discussed was important and necessary. I don't think there was a single thing that we talked about in terms of the actual structure of the data, the development of bookends. It was not necessary. I feel like the introduction to bookends for the people who are actually watching this was important as well, especially to just share what we value, trying to align what we're doing, right? So I kind of push back on we went a little bit long, other than, I mean, actual time wise, going a little bit long. I think the discussion was necessary to get us both on the same page, so we know what we're trying to build. And I would say, so my favorite pair programming sessions ever
Yeah.
were always when I would sit down with the person I was about to build something with. We would get out this massive whiteboard. Like I'm telling you, like we had this whiteboard that would fit on top of a pool table, and we would just cover that thing. We'd be planning, be writing these random ideas and notes off to the side. And I mean, after an hour, 2 hours of that, we're like, okay, here are the high level interfaces of what we're working with. Here's the data structures we have. Okay, here's how they're broken up. All right, you build that, I'll build this. We'll come back together in an hour. Just see how far we've gotten, right? And so those were the most productive and efficient programming sessions I was ever in, and this felt exactly like that. So I'm excited for Thursday, man. We're just gonna start crushing this out. Like I honestly feel like with this data structure in hand, I can probably get a rough working version of this app working in Flutter, especially with AI. In like, I could probably have something working in like the hour that we'll be together. So it's gonna be awesome.
I think so. It'll be fun. I was tinkering around a little bit with Fast API, so I switched. I know I shouldn't have done it. I switched my Flask app, my AI generator, over to Fast API, and I needed to work on it anyways, a couple things, and then I ended up redoing it, all of it, and making it more efficient. And I now store my images in DigitalOcean. So, I a couple hours of that, and I've kind of got Flask is pretty awesome, or not Flask. Fast API is pretty awesome. I like the documentation it spits out with Swagger UI. It's kind of nice. So like for me, like I said, documentation. I'm looking forward to importing that into an actual docs site. It's pretty cool. So I'm pumped. I like building backend stuff. Ask anybody. I'll do it all day. That's what I enjoy.
And I like building front end stuff.
Yep.
So,
all right.
Match made in heaven. Let's do this.
Let's go. Nothing to it but to do it. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. And yeah, everyone who's watching, have an amazing Tuesday. Really appreciate everyone who showed up, who listened to Amir and I ramble on about what we're building and geek out about what we're building. I'm excited.
Yeah. Hope they can watch the journey. It's going to be fun. See what's possible. So, all right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, buddy. I'll see you on Thursday.
Yep. See you, Amir.
All right. Might see you.